Welcome back to our live coverage of E3 2018. Welcome to Shack News. I'm Ozzy Mejia, the senior editor. I'm here with Michel Koch, the co-creative director of DONTNOD Entertainment. He's here on behalf of the awesome adventures of Captain Spirit. Say hello, Michel.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. And I'm really happy to be here today to show you the awesome adventures of Captain Spirit.
So we're going to go ahead and throw to the trailer right now, and we'll see you again in a second.
Spirit of my silence, I can hear you, but I'm afraid to be near you, and I don't know where to begin, and I don't know where to begin.
It's just me, Captain Spirit. This is Chris to the Flying Fortress. Have you spotted Snowmancer? Not yet. Keep me posted.
Chris, breakfast.
Okay, Dad. You're drinking beer?
I don't need a lecture from my son.
I always get picked last for the team at school, and they never throw the ball to me.
They can't tell stories like you can they?
No way. Start the launch. Too late! Emergency!
You're too weak to fight me.
This time, you won't get away from me.
He was gonna get it done in the and it's alright.
I miss Mom's smile.
Me too.
Nobody's friend.
You're probably gonna change the world.
Just
I hope so.
I know so.
but I really doubt.
Captain Spirit is here!
I think you're a vision.
The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit. Download for free from June 26th.
And we're back. That was an amazing trailer that we just saw. And Michel, can you tell me a little bit about what we're seeing in The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit? What's the game about?
Sure. So over the past 2 years, we've been working hard on Life is Strange 2 after we finished working on Life is Strange 1. And we cannot wait, of course, to tell you more about Life is Strange 2 in the couple of months. And what you just saw, The Awesome Adventure of Captain Spirit, is a narrative experience that takes place within the world of Life is Strange 2. So basically it will be the first entry point for the players, where they will get to find secret clues and hints to what Life is Strange 2 will be. It takes place in the same setting, the same timeline, and the same universe as Life is Strange 2. And it is a free game. Basically, it's around a couple of hours of gameplay, and with a lot of replay value. So we really hope that the players will want to experience this story, and find all the clues and hints to what Life is Strange 2 will be.
But one thing to note is that while it's in the same setting as Life is Strange, the idea is this is not Arcadia Bay, correct?
No, definitely not. It's a brand new story with new characters. You play as Chris. You've seen this little boy who is almost 10. He's a lonely kid with a very vivid imagination, and he is living with his dad in the small town of Beaver Creek, which is located in Oregon, but to the east of Oregon, around the mountains.
And one interesting thing that I saw the game this morning, and
cool.
You know, beyond it looking great, I wanted to mention that there's a bit of a customization element to it, correct?
Yeah, you've seen, of course, that as Chris thinks and likes to pretend he's a superhero, Captain Spirit, he wants to create this costume. So that's one of the first things you do when you play Captain Spirit, is you start to decide what kind of costume you want for Captain Spirit. And just to explain a bit more, the way we did design Captain Spirit is some sort of a narrative sandbox where you're playing as this kid with a lot of imagination during a typical Saturday morning. So as a kid on a Saturday morning, when you're on your own, you have a lot of free time to just do whatever you want. So Chris can decide, for example, to try actively to create this costume. He can play in his bedroom, telling stories with his toys. He can decide to try to help his dad with house chores. You can go outside and explore the garden, the treehouse. There is a lot of different ways of, as when we were kids, basically, how do we spend our time and how do we sometimes escape from the reality by using our imagination.
And one of the interesting things that I saw that seems to be different from Life is Strange is that you have a freedom of movement while you're making decisions. Like I noticed that Chris was still moving around while the dialogue choices came up.
Yeah, it's something that's quite new in Captain Spirit. Is this possibility to answer dialogue option while you still are in control of your character. So, for example, I think you saw that this morning. When you're in your room just playing with your toys, at the moment you have your dad who is calling you for breakfast, and then you can just continue to move around while you decide to answer him like something, I'm coming, or I want to wait for a few more minutes. Or you can also just decide to not answer him, and of course that might piss him off. So that's something we'll see a bit more in during Captain Spirit, is that it allows us to increase the immersion for the player when they can still actively answer to some dialogue options while moving and having those interactions with the world.
And that points to an upgraded engine, correct? Like you're using either a new engine or an upgraded version of the previous game's engine?
Life is Strange, the first Life is Strange was with Unreal Engine 3, and so for Captain Spirit we did upgrade to Unreal Engine 4. It was really interesting for us because this allowed us to upgrade a lot of the tech. We've been developing a new animation technology. We did develop a brand new facial animation system where we have still much more control over the facial animations of the characters. We had a lot of also physics animation for the clothing and different elements on the characters. But what we tried really is to still keep the DNA of the game. I'm working with Raoul Barbet, the other creative director of the game, and we really wanted Captain Spirit to have really the DNA of the game we created before, and to really be a Life is Strange. So it has the same art direction, the same style of editing for the cinematography, and of course the same kind of pacing where you can really take your time and enjoy the characters and feel the moments. That's definitely something that for us was really important as a game within the Life is Strange universe. And of course there is the music. You will hear more about the music in the game, but we always love to work with artists we like, and we really selected a few songs that for us were really important for the tone of the game and for the story of the game that we'll hear in Captain Spirit.
Now, the entirety of the story takes place in Chris's house, correct? And it's just, you go sort of outside the house to venture in his imagination. And how much fun did you have with those imagination sequences?
Yeah, this was one of the really coolest things to do for Captain Spirit. Is basically the main theme of Captain Spirit is that when you have a great imagination, you can escape reality, and sometimes you need also to escape reality, sometimes to deal with more difficult subjects. And you will discover that while playing the game, that of course Chris and his dad have some issues. That's something like really important for us in our games, to present to the players some real world issues, and maybe to bring some awareness to those. So even if the game at first sight looks like a kid playing and having those fake superpowers and going into its own imagination, it's much more about the characters themselves, and you will learn a lot about those characters, the stories they are experiencing, and about their life by going into those imaginary worlds. And so yeah, for us it was really interesting to think back to our own childhood. What kind of imagination did we have when we were kids? Like, I don't know, do you want to imagine that you after watching, I don't know, a movie like Spider-Man, do you want to think that you can climb onto walls, or that you could throw some web? Or, I mean, we've all been kids, and I hope that the Captain Spirit can resonate for many players, thinking that, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I had those crazy ideas, and sometimes that brought me to new worlds, even if it was just in my head.
And you sort of made that into a mechanic. Like, there's a part where Chris is in the real world. He wants to turn on his TV. He holds out his arm. It's like, and he's just like turns it on with like the power of his mind. And are there going to be a lot of scenes like that where like he's kind of tries to use his power in the real world? And
yeah, definitely. It's one of the funnest. It was one of the most fun part of creating Captain Spirit for us. Is we have these mechanics, like you said, like on several objects and interactions. You can interact with those objects like you did in Life is Strange 1, and getting some interaction with those, some more hints about Chris and the house and the story. But you can also press the trigger on the controller and decide to use your superpower as Captain Spirit. So, like you said, it can be like this TV set where you can just say that the kid will turn it on by the power of his mind, while he's, of course, as you saw, actually just hiding the remote control behind him, and he's pretending. But that's what we did a lot, I think, as a kid, just to play pretend and to make things bigger than they are. And because that's really one of the power of the imagination when you're a kid, is that almost anything mundane can turn into a great adventure. You will have to see, for example, you can play with some of these action figures and create this whole story between those, which gets bigger and bigger than just two plastic toys on the ground. And there is a lot to find in Captain Spirit of interaction like this. Some will be quite simple, some other will bring you to more bigger imaginary worlds. And like I said, there is a lot of secrets in the game where you can really play it over and over if you want to experience everything. Because the story of Captain Spirit takes place over this Saturday morning, and we have some sort of a timeline. So sometimes you need to be at the right moment, at the right place, at the right moment to experience parts of the story.
Does that mean it kind of like unfolds in either real time or like a sort of? Is there like a time cycle or?
There is some part of real time. You've seen this morning that at a point you have a breakfast with your dad, and then he goes to watch a basketball game on the TV. So we have a sort of timeline for this basketball game where you have some events that will take place at certain moments, and if you're not there, or if you're not there when they happen, you might also miss them. But you might find something else at the same moment somewhere else. So that's basically a way to really pushes the players to experiments on how they want to spend their time as a kid, and also reward them, because there is no right way to do it. Whatever you try to do in Captain Spirit, you will find interesting reward, interesting stuff that will bring the story forward.
So there's something that Life is Strange and Captain Spirit seem to have in common, and that's this idea of the broken home. Like Chloe came from a family that, her father died, and with Captain Spirit, with Chris, it looks like, his mom's not around for whatever reason. So can you explain the family dynamic between Chris and his dad?
So I don't want to say too much about it to not spoil everything, because it's quite a short story. So players can experience the whole story in a couple of hours. So I still really want them to experience it and discover all the story by themselves. But as you can see in the beginning and already in the trailer, basically Chris is living alone with his dad. Their relationship is not that great, because of course they have past issues. You saw on the trailer that the dad is drinking beers early in the morning, so there are reasons for that, of course. And by playing Captain Spirit, you will definitely experience more of that and see. You can discover different facets of the characters of your dad. And of course also learn much more about the family and about the mother and everything. So yeah, I hope the player will discover that by himself, so I don't want to spoil it.
So Chris has like a whole to-do list. Like you can either just go about your Saturday morning and go look for Mantroid, which is like I guess the big villain of the big nemesis for Captain Spirit, but you can also help out with chores and take on an evil water heater, or something like that. Yeah. Like, can you detail what's on Chris's to-do list over the course of the Saturday morning?
We created this to-do list of Captain Spirit because that's also something that we did remind from ourselves as kids or other kids. We saw that kids sometimes when they play and when they pretend to be a superhero or to have, they like to imagine that they have some bigger tasks to do. That I need to defeat this monster. I need to explore this place. So you have this list of quests in Captain Spirit that you can do as Captain Spirit, of course, you are not forced to do them at all. It is not necessary to finish them to also experience the end of the story. But it's still a lot of elements that can pushes the player to explore the house, explore the garden, the treehouse, and try to collect more of the secrets and learn more about the story. It's a bit like when I said it's some sort of narrative sandbox. That's basically it's up to the player to decide what they want to achieve, what they want to not achieve, and how they want to spend this morning. Yeah, you'll see, for example, creating the costume is one of those quests. So you start Captain Spirit by choosing what your costume will be, and then you have this small quest to find the different pieces of how you could create this superhero costume. And as you can imagine, and you saw that on the trailer, that of course is a costume crafted by a kid. So it's charming and funny to look at, but it's definitely not a perfect costume bought in a Halloween store.
So this is indicating that there seem to be a lot of stories in the Life is Strange universe. Like we've seen Max's story, we've seen Chloe's story, now we're seeing Chris's story. Are there going to be other stories that DONTNOD is going to explore in this world?
I hope so. I cannot say much. I almost cannot say anything about Life is Strange 2, of course. But we are, of course, exploring. Since we've been working on Life is Strange 2 for more than 2 years, we are well advanced and on what it is. So yeah, players will be able to discover that quite soon. But definitely, for us, Life is Strange is really about creating relatable characters that are dealing with real life issues, and where there is a twist of the strange with some slight supernatural elements in it, like when we had the rewind power for Max, which was a great way for us to bring the story forward and add a catalyst to what was the core of the story of Max. So that's why also we thought that creating new characters was important for us, because it allows us to talk about new different themes. I mean, if we did stay, for example, in high school, at a point there was a lot of the themes and the issue we wanted to talk about high school that we did in the first game. And that's also why we wanted to get out of high school, to have access to new stories and new themes and new characters with their own issues that we could develop on, and hopefully the players will love them.
And with that said, there are some Easter eggs that reference Life is Strange. Like I think there was later in the demo that I saw, there was like a letter from Blackwell Academy. So are there multiple Easter eggs like that hidden throughout Captain Spirit?
So Captain Spirit is really first a standalone experience, which means that if you didn't play Life is Strange, or if you don't want to play Life is Strange 2, we hope that you will feel that it's a great story by itself. It has a beginning, it has an ending, and it's really a self-contained story that works by itself. But it's much more also, because it has links and nods to the first Life is Strange. So the letter you mentioned is one of those, and there is a few others that, if you look around, if you look closely, you can find some hints to how the universe, those universes are connected, and how all those stories are taking place in one same world, where, of course, Arcadia Bay exists and other characters still exist in this universe. And also, if you look while playing Captain Spirit, you will find definitely clues to what Life is Strange 2 will be, to what will be the story or the setting of Life is Strange 2.
So this answer might relate to Life is Strange 2, so I'm not expecting too much out of this, but I was surprised to hear that Captain Spirit is a standalone episode. I was expecting like a 3 or 4 or 5 episode series, but this is just a standalone. So is there a possibility that we might revisit Chris's story somewhere down the line?
I really cannot say anything about that, but that's up to you to imagine that, since it takes place in the Life is Strange 2 universe, and we think that it's great for the players to play Captain Spirit. I think we'll let the player imagine how this connects to Life is Strange 2.
And what's the timeline for this game? Like, when does it take place in relation to when Life is Strange 1 takes place?
It takes place 3 years later. Basically, Life is Strange 1 did take place in 2013, and since we also like to be somehow in sync with the real date. That's why also we decided to fast forward to 2016. So when the game would be released, it would be still close to our own date. I don't know why I think we like that, so we are still close to the people and close to the real-time date.
So I guess that leads me to this question. If it's 3 years after the events of the first game, are players going to find out which of the two endings from the first game is canon?
So there is no canon ending for the first game, definitely. And players will see that we stand to this point.
Okay. I figured, because like the two endings for like the first game are like so wildly different.
Yeah, it is.
And it's just like you wonder what actually happened, and if we're ever going to hear that referenced again. But will we ever hear that referenced again? Like at any point, either during Captain Spirit or during Life is Strange 2?
So you'll see that in Captain Spirit, you will find that references for the first Life is Strange that are basically before the ending of Life is Strange. So we do not have to canonize any ending for that. And for Life is Strange 2, you'll have to see what we do. But definitely, I can assure you that there is no canon ending. But also, since we are exploring new characters and new stories, of course, we will have connections. We will have links between the games, and some of the choices will be taken into account. But also, it will be for some, I would say, specific moments or not major changes in the story. Just so the players won't be also disappointed that, of course, there is two endings in Life is Strange 1. None of these are canon, so we are not directly continuing one or the other. So, yeah.
Okay, great. And you mentioned that you will have an announcement on Life is Strange 2 in the coming months. So I guess we should be on the lookout for that?
That's all I can say.
Okay.
You will hear about it soon in the coming months.
And the Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit is out on June 26th of this month, completely free of charge, right?
Yeah, it will be released on the 26th of June in less than 2 weeks now, completely for free on Xbox One, PS4, and PC.
Great. Michel, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the interview.
This has been a great time, and we're looking forward to seeing the Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit.
Thank you.
Keep it on Shack News, and we will be right back.